Hi friends, if you're like me, you feel better after exercising, but you definitely don't want all those buff nerds to know that they were right. Or you're a photographer that wants to talk about pre-booking stuff, so everything from the first emails to client meetings to all the things that happen before they book. If that sounds like you, we should talk. So today I wanted to talk about first impressions because that's the one. That's the one that matters. Sometimes that's all we get. So I really want to talk about how I respond to client inquiries when they come in and what those first meetings look like and what I do up until I book a wedding, like what that entire process looks like. Whether I fail or succeed, I'm going to talk about what I do. So first of all, a bunch of stuff happens behind the scenes that we're completely unaware of. Somebody gets enamored with our work, theoretically, and they decide to inquire. Cool. We have the inquiry. This is where we're starting. The first thing you want to do is make sure that you're responding to that inquiry almost immediately if you can. I think the goal should be to respond within 2 hours, but definitely within 24 hours. I know from being in forums with clients that a lot of people say that they only end up booking meetings with the first couple of people that inquire, because if anybody takes a little bit longer than that, then they assume that they're probably not interested. I typically don't respond to emails over the weekend, but I will respond to new client inquiries over the weekend. And the way that I do that is by having a really simple canned response that I can just change a couple things in to make it sound more personable, and responding to new inquiries takes less than 2 minutes. It's not taking up a lot of my time and I can do it anywhere. A couple of notes on the first email that you send. Make sure that you are responding to any questions that they may have asked. Make sure that you are including full weddings or at least slideshows to weddings that are reflective of their venue if they've given you an idea of a venue, or if it's a December wedding, show them a snowy wedding that you've shot before. You really want them to be able to put themselves inside of the pictures that you're showing them. So if you get an inquiry and it's for Holy Trinity Church, and if you're sending them sample albums from beaches or barn weddings, then it's going to be a little bit harder for them to project themselves into those photos. So make sure that you're customizing your emails to make sure that they're able to see themselves in your pictures, because ideally that's what you want to do. Even if I don't necessarily love the wedding that I've shot at their venue, if somebody inquires and says that they are booking a specific venue that I've worked at before, I will always include a sample album of that wedding. Even if it's not great, my thinking is this is probably better than a lot of the other photographers that they're looking at. It's definitely better than the wedding venue photos that they've seen. And even though I don't think it matters, deep down in my soul, I don't think it matters, people feel better knowing that you've been to the venue. Also, whenever you're sending your pricing link, make sure that you're not sending a PDF. You don't want to put attachments in emails. That's how stuff ends up getting sent to spam. If you are sending them a downloadable PDF, make sure it's under 15 megabytes. Anything bigger than that and it's excessive, I would say try to get under 10 if you can. But also just try not to do PDFs because they're likely going to be looking at it on their phones, and PDFs aren't super mobile friendly. They're usually designed on desktops, for desktops. So that's just something to keep in mind. So in addition to making sure that I am answering any questions they have, going to respond to anything that they've said. If they've mentioned anything personal, I want to make sure that I'm responding to that. Again, so it's not a generic email. And the last thing that I want to include in the email is I want to make sure that I'm asking them an open-ended question. So what venue are you guys thinking about? Or what other vendors do you have booked? But the biggest thing that I want to do is ask them if they would like to meet. It can be really vague, like, would you like to set up a time? Or you can be really specific. Are you guys available next Thursday or Friday? I just think it's really important for your first initial client inquiry to give a very clear call to action. You want them to know what the next step is. What do you want to do next? You want to set up a time to meet. So when I first started my business, it was really a short email that I used to send. It used to be hey, it's so nice to hear from you. I love your venue. Yes, I would absolutely love to talk about your wedding day with you. Here's a link to my pricing. I would love to set up a time to meet with you. I'm excited to hear about your wedding day, Nessa. But the one that I send now is a little bit longer. Hi, I'm excited to hear from you. Yes, I'm available on your wedding date. Here's a link to my pricing. And I'd love to share some completed wedding days with you to give you an idea of what a full day of wedding coverage looks like. And then I have a bunch of links, and I delete the ones that feel kind of irrelevant depending on what the inquiry is. So my canned response is huge, and then I'm just deleting the things that don't matter to individual inquiries. And the things that I'm usually including are wedding day slideshows, but I also send 2 full galleries just so they know. And then I end with the call to action, which is, I'd love to set up a time to meet with you. Would you prefer FaceTime or Google Hangout or Zoom? And that's what my email looks like. I'm trying not to give them a lot of duplicate information, so I'm not trying to talk through what my pricing page looks like because they can go to that. I'm not trying to answer any frequently asked questions because again, that's in the pricing guide, but I want to give them information that's not on my site, and one thing that's not on my site are links to my full galleries. So that is what I'm just trying to do in my email, because ideally they've inquired because they love what they've seen on my website. That's mostly marketing material. So now I want them to see what I really do. So what a full wedding day looks like. So it's not just going to be the beautiful landscapes. It's going to be people hugging their grandmas, set to music so it kind of has an emotional feel. And I really like slideshows just for that. I just feel like slideshows are a little bit more emotional to watch, so I really like including slideshows for that reason. Next, we're going to talk about following up. So assume you don't hear anything back. Do you follow up? I do. Only because it is super easy in my email client. I've been using Supermail. It makes it really easy for me to just click on a button that says remind me in 2 weeks if no one replies. So if nobody replies in 2 weeks, it gets bounced back to my inbox and I have a follow-up email. And my follow-up email is just a bunch of resource links. So it's stuff like, I just wanted to check in to see if you had any questions, if there was anything I can do for you while you plan for your wedding. I also wanted to link you to some articles that I have on planning for lighting on your wedding day, or if you're thinking about an engagement session, here's some information on that. But I really just wanted to touch base to say that I'm here if you need help or have any questions along the way. I hope you're having a great week and hopefully talk soon. So that is the email response that I send if I haven't heard back from them. Sometimes they get a response, sometimes they don't. Don't follow up more than once unless you just want to do recon to figure out why they didn't respond. Especially if somebody was just like, oh my God, I've been following your work since I was 12 years old and I forced my boyfriend to propose to me so that we could get married and you're the only photographer that I've ever even looked at. Or you know what I mean? Like if I get somebody that's super excited and then I don't hear anything back, I will still only follow up one time. But if I'm like desperate to know like what happened, like what went wrong, the only time that I will follow up a third time is just to do recon. And the email sounds like this. I hope this email finds you well. I just wanted to reach out because I haven't heard from you in a while. I'd still love to work with you. However, if you've decided to go in another direction, I'd love to get some information about what decision you've made, if any. My goal is always to continue to improve myself in business and in life. So I definitely appreciate any constructive criticism you have. If you have any feedback for me at all, sometimes it's helpful to reach out to see why folks went in another direction, whether it's personality clash, another style of photography you preferred, budget constraints, or the wedding date just being in flux. But if you had a minute, I thought I would ask. Thank you for your time. Have a good day. So the only time that I will send that is when I'm like fully aware of the fact that I am not booking, but I want to know like, why aren't people booking me? So you guys know that I do end of the year client surveys. I'm not afraid of asking for client feedback, and it's the only way that we can grow. It is the only way for you to identify if something isn't working in your business, is to ask people why you aren't hearing back, especially if you're getting the inquiries. Clearly your website's working. If you're getting the inquiries, if you aren't booking them, then this might be a really good email to send. But if you aren't hearing back after the first email, I recommend going ahead and drafting an A-B email. Every other inquiry, send a long one that has a bunch of links to a bunch of sample albums, and in another one have a smaller email that just has a link to your pricing and a very clear call to action of like, let's meet, let's talk. See if you start getting responses more from one or the other, because one of them might be hitting the sweet spot for your specific breed of clients, and the other one might be overwhelming. I tend to share a lot, so I do longer emails because it's on brand for me. Now let's talk about the meeting. I'm still not meeting people in real life. I don't know if anybody's doing that. So I'm just gonna scrap all the things that I do in real life meetings, which was bring albums and buy them coffee and stuff, and just talk about what I actually do now. I meet with almost every client that I book. I at least have a phone call. I don't do very well on the phone. I don't. I need to see people to read their social cues for me to be able to do it. I had a meeting yesterday that did not go well because it was like, I need to see your face. It was a Zoom call, but they just didn't turn on their video and I couldn't be like, turn it on. But I'm going to go through what I talk about at meetings. And this has literally not changed since the beginning of my business. I really look at the client meeting kind of like just a hangout or like a date, but like a date in your 20s, not in your like late 30s. So in your 20s, all you're trying to do is like ask them questions about themselves and make light and try to make them laugh. And in your 30s, I think you're more like, do you want kids? Like, what do you do for a living? Like, where do you see this going? And it's like a little bit more serious. So it's a date in your 20s. So it's a fun date. So I really try to get people to talk about themselves. I really want to talk about like how wedding planning's been going. What are some things that they like? Do they have any pets? What are they most excited about on their wedding day? Are their families excited for them? Has everybody met before? I just try to ask like basic questions that are related to the wedding day, but also more related to them personally. So less about the things that are revolving around the wedding planning and more about like who they are as people and how their family is going to be incorporated. And then I open the floor for asking if they have any questions or if they just want me to talk about what I do. And if they want me to talk about what I do, then I jump into it, and I do. For the most part, what I'm trying to do is talk about what I like about shooting weddings. I talk about how I have a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree and how I really loved loved finding weddings as a profession because it combines all the things that I like to do about wedding. I was also a photojournalist, so I'm like, weddings are cool because it combines all the things that I love about wedding photography into one day. Like, I get to do fine art portraiture, but for the most part, all I'm trying to do is be in the right place at the right time. And my goal, my sole purpose on a wedding day is to tell their story, what that looks like. Yes, I'm going to take pictures of the flowers and the dress and the kiss and all the things that make a wedding day look traditional, but my goal is to show them how their wedding day looked different than everybody else's. I really want to focus on the in-between moments and show them how their friends and family came together to enjoy themselves, how they enjoyed their wedding day. My goal is to show them authentically how the day unfolded. And I really try to paint pictures the way that, but if you've ever gone to a meeting and talked to a realtor, they really try to like paint a picture of what you can do in different rooms. Like, oh, here you can like open up the door and listen to the crickets and just have a glass of wine, or like, oh, this would be an amazing room for you to set up your canvas and, you know, you can just paint and look out at this beautiful tree. I really try to do that just a little bit with what I know about their wedding day. They ask if I have any questions for them, and I really try to recap. So if what they've told me is they're really trying to get everybody to come in because it's really important to them to host everybody, and then it's really important for them to have a good time, and they're really looking forward to the dance party. And then I sort of brief them on that. Like, it sounds like your wedding is going to be a lot of fun and that the dance party is going to be like really huge, which I'm very excited about. And I sort of mirror the things that they've said. Basic mirroring is really good if you've ever read the book, which is kind of about manipulation, but it's how to win friends and influence people. But it's also just polite to, you know, say, yes, I understand you, and here are the things that you've said worded in a slightly different way. So that is basically what I'm trying to get out of the meeting. And then I also talk about like what a wedding day timeline would look like based on the information they have. They're like, how many hours do we need you for? And I'm like, well, that depends, but I usually recommend starting 2 hours into the reception dancing and then counting backwards 6 hours or 8 hours and then figuring out what your priorities are based on that. So I give them what a rough timeline would look like based on that. And that's something you can include in the notes whenever you're sending them an email to thank them for the meeting. It's like, hey, this is the rough timeline based on what we talked about. And there you've done a little bit of work with them and showed them exactly how you'll be incorporated into their wedding day, which is cool. One thing that I'm trying to do at meetings more than anything else is keep things really light and funny. I also tend to, and it's just my personality, make fun of the process a little bit. Whenever we're talking about portraits, and if they say one thing that really drew them to my work is that they love how candid it is, I'm like, thank you so much. It's not, but thank you. I feel like that's feedback that I get at a lot of client meetings, is that people love how candid my portraits are. And what's cool about it is that nobody looks more awkward than somebody that has never been photographed before being put in front of a camera and is just told to like, do your thing. So I kind of make fun of the process a little bit. I say something like, if somebody put me in a field and was just like, do your thing, and took pictures, like, it would not look candid at all. It would only look weird. So I talk a little bit about how my clients are all just normal people, and that I'm helping to guide them so that it looks more relaxed and candid, because it isn't. And it's weird, and we have a very small amount of time to get a lot of variety of pictures in, and how if they are nervous about it at all, one thing that's helpful is an engagement session. And it's cool if they don't want to do an engagement session, but it can be really helpful. On that note, I don't try to hard sell anybody on anything. It's not my style, it's not my flavor. I want people to want to work with me. So I am trying to bring the same energy that I bring to shoots. I'm very upbeat. I try to make a lot of jokes. I try to make them laugh. I tend to not talk about money. My strong suit isn't business, it's talking about art. My strong suit isn't money, it's value, talking about feelings. And I think that those things are valuable, so I just try to shift it to things that I feel more comfortable doing. Obviously, if they have questions about money, then we'll talk about that. But for the most part, I'm trying to gear the conversation more towards how they feel about different things and what the service that I'm providing will be. My ultimate goal is for them to end the meeting feeling really positive, because people aren't going to remember what you said, they're going to remember how you made them feel. So I really just wanted to feel like a nice experience, because ultimately it's kind of a date. I want them to feel good about the experience of working with me and know that I can make them feel good, because if we know anything about weddings, it's that they can be a little bit stressful, and so I want them to feel like I'm in their corner to make them feel better. And after the meeting, I always send a contract. It's something that I tell them to look out for. Just, hey, so I'm just going to send you guys a contract your way just for you guys to look over together, and then if you have any more questions about that, definitely let me know. I would love to work with you, but I also want it to be something that you guys feel comfortable with, on the same page with. So if you want to see any more examples of anything, I know I've sent you a bunch already, but if you want to see more, like, I have them and I'm happy to share them. And that means that the next email that they get from me is another call to action, which is, this is how you book me. This is the contract where you book me. All of this being said, I don't book everybody that I meet with. I am out of budget for a lot of people. Some people don't give me good reasons. Some people meet with other photographers and book before you even get a chance to meet. Those things happen to me too, but I do end up booking most of the people that I meet with. And I have no idea what other people talk about in their meetings, but I thought I would share what happens in mine, and I hope that's helpful. If you have any questions at all, definitely let me know. I hope you're having a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Why would I get privacy? That doesn't make sense. I know. I asked for too much. Right. Perfect. Hi friends, if you're like me, you're thinking what I'm thinking. Right?